Hi, my name is Ryan Hartford, and this is Ecliptic Stories. I want to introduce my next guest, Cynthia Summers. She's an award-winning costume designer, celebrated for her standout work on The Last of Us, Snowpiercer, Apollo 11, a series of unfortunate events, and the upcoming HBO show Lanterns, based on the Green Lantern DC comic book. With multiple Emmy, CAFCAD, and Costume Designers Guild Awards, and several wins, including an Emmy, her work spans gritty, post-apocalyptic worlds to bold, stylized fantasy. Thank you for being with us, Cynthia. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's really great to be here, and I can't wait to chat.
Can you take us back to a moment that you first realized costume designing was your calling, and was there a defining influence that steered you in that direction?
Yes. And it's still very clear to me today. And this is, you got to know, this is 30 years later. I started out in musical theater and dance as a performer and sort of segued into costume in the dance world. And that at some point, during that, I had my own little business, my own little cottage industry business, and I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if I needed to up my game, as it were. So I went back to fashion design school, and while I was there, a movie came into town, and they were looking for someone to build tutus for a portion of the film. And I said yes, and I did it. And I remember the moment going to base camp to have a fitting in the actor's trailer of their tutu. And it really was just getting to base camp, seeing what was going on there, the vans pulling up with the blacked out windows and people getting out in walkies and earbuds and a lot of commotion and a lot of, racks of clothing everywhere and makeup people everywhere. And I kind of in that moment got caught up in the hubbub of it all and the sort of I wanted to know what it was. I was so intrigued with what was going on. Then I had my fitting, and that was amazing and charming and in the moment. Everything is so in the moment in film. So I got hooked. That was the moment I was hooked, and I very nicely sent them notes and calls and letters for about a year, and then a film came up and they said, do you want to do it? And I said yes, and that was a year later, and that was my first film called Double Happiness, Mina Sham's movie with Sandra Oh. And I did it. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not go to film school, so I really didn't know how to read a call sheet. I didn't know anything. And it was the most bewildering and fantastic uh, 3 months of my life, I guess.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, so I've been doing it ever since.
Sandra Oh is such a big star now. Did she like working kind of in that environment? Did you feel like she was going to just blow up and have a huge career after that?
I don't know if I was that cognizant of anything like that
Yeah.
during that time.
Yeah.
When you're in it and it's just so all encompassing and all, I mean, I was exhausted, I was excited. It was her first film, I believe, as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like you
Yeah.
kind of saw that blossom into
Yeah.
and that was right at the start of your career also. So like you both have kind of an interesting trajectory upward.
Yeah.
Um, did you
I think hers was more intentional than mine. I kind of fell into it or happened into it
yeah,
and discovered that was actually really what I wanted to do. Whereas Sandra, I think obviously that was
yeah.
her.
Was it like kind of overwhelming just with like so much going on?
So overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you get yourself into that you're committed to and you're
Yeah.
going to do it. 90% of the time, you're not sure if you're doing anything right, and you're just making it up as you go along and just trying to stay afloat. And it's that elevated sense of chaos that you're living in. But if you look around, even seasoned people seem to live on that level in film, in this elevated sense of chaos and creativity. And I guess it's, in a sense, it's how people speak about their weddings or similar situations where, they're in it, they don't know what they said, They don't know who was there.
Mm.
They just went and it was fabulous and it was all a blur. And thank God everybody was taking pictures.
Yeah, that's I think that's an interesting thing about most big opportunities like that. Like you
Mm.
don't want to say no to something that might be a huge runway to something bigger, but you also may not feel like you're ready. Did you feel like you weren't quite ready for that opportunity yet?
Yeah, no, I was ready because I knew that previous year, I knew when I went to that base camp and sort of saw everything and met the people and
Yeah.
interacted with everyone, I knew that's where I wanted to be next. I didn't know how I was going to do it, and there was no time for film school, and I went to fashion design school, so they don't teach you about film sets. But everything is an asset, any kind of education for costume design in that path is valuable. And just it's one of those situations where I think they still exist in life, and maybe it's coming back around in a big way again. Really, you just have to take chances. You might get there and figure out that it's not for you, or that the film world is not for you because, it's chaos and it's all in 24/7 until you've got the project done. So it's
Mhm.
not everybody's way of existing that is comfortable. And it's like a sport. If you join a team,
Mhm.
you've joined a team. So you have a commitment to this team, to this film team, to at least finish this project as best you can. And I think that's just what I did, and I just kept going.
That's a very important lesson to learn, especially early in your career. Like
Yeah.
what path should you just get on and commit
Yeah.
to?
That's right. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not the right one, and there's no, shade on anyone who gets off the bus
Yeah, right.
because I think that's even more mature and more responsible to yourself and to everyone else. If this isn't for you, don't beat a dead horse. I
Yeah,
mean,
why torture yourself
I
in a
torture
yeah,
yourself.
in a path, especially film, like that's
Yeah.
if you don't feel like you're 100% in film, it is plain torture. It's hard to get work. When you do
Yeah.
have work, you're not sleeping, you're constantly bombarded with, like you said, chaos. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
isn't the easiest path, but it's very rewarding.
It is. It is.
Is there like a project you feel like kind of defined your career, or do you feel like the turning point shifted from like smaller projects to like more major projects?
I mean, probably Lemony Snicket. It was incredibly creatively collaborative with Barry Sonnenfeld and with Bo Welch, our production designer, and Rose Lamb, my producer, whom I love and who've done so many of my best projects with, and a great crew, a big crew. We built everything, we dyed everything. I mean, we just created from the bottom up and worked really, really close with production design and props. And it just was so all encompassing. It was highly, highly creative, and there was a lot of expectation. After Lemony Snicket, and this wasn't something that really anybody wanted me to do, which was the Babysitters Club.
Mm.
And I I was in between projects and I sort of lobbied my crew and said, "Are you guys interested in doing the Babysitters Club?" And it was a unanimous yes, because a lot of my crew were of a generation who read the books.
Hmm.
And I know that my kids did, or my daughter. And I just was like, well, I mean, this is something who doesn't love the books. Most people, most girls, women are aware of the books.
Yeah.
They're strong female characters. And this season one was going to be a sort of bringing all of the key characters back, but bringing them really current into current politics of when girls' politics and things like that when we were doing it. So, and different fashion that still speaks to the characters in the books, and speak to the characters that have come in the decades before that they've done the Babysitters Club. But very new and bright, and just really, I mean, we had so much fun, and some of those kids It was really great, and we won an Emmy for it.
So going from TV shows before Lemony Snicket's, and then you got that job. What was that like navigating that bigger show? What was that like?
I'd done a bunch of series work that sort of got me prepared for something like Lemony, but Lemony was larger on every scale. So it was a dream. It was a dream. I had a larger crew. I had everything in house. It was my own, I don't know, my own village. I just loved it. It was loved. I just loved it. I had my own in-house illustrator, which is something to heart.
Wow.
I don't, yeah, he was like full-time in-house. And so I got to sit with the illustrator every morning, 5 days a week. It was amazing. And I had a workshop with like three tailors and a
What
bunch of stitchers. And
what was that like when you had the illustrator? Were you just sitting next to them and just being like, "Hey, like red hat, like with the flower
yeah,
on the side of it," like you were just kind
yeah.
of describing your vision?
Kind of. I mean, I do more work than that. You can do little sketches, a lot of references. So I'll pull a lot of visual references, whether it's the shape of a jacket or a pair of shoes or a flower that's a certain color or some tapestries that I like the sort of design of or the texture of. And I'll give the illustrator, I'll send them a package via email, and I will, or I can come in with something, something tangible,
Hmm.
an apple or something that's got color or texture to see how the sheen goes, or an old pair of boots that I want to somehow replicate and you can see in the illustration. So there's a lot of information that I'll give them first. So I want this character standing in the
Hmm.
illustration. This is what I want them to be emoting in the illustration. So I need a look on their face that could be this, evil, or it could be laughing, or it could be any, whatever I'm trying to say to sell this costume to our director and our producers. Yeah.
So with the like inspiration for a show like that, would you make it a point to go visit like for some reason I imagine like going to like a old palace and just like walking around and just kind of like looking at the walls and looking at the chandeliers and kind of like seeing kind of this because that had such a unique style to it just in
Hmm.
general just because of what it was. Do you
Yeah. I
find
mean,
yourself like putting yourself in that environment a lot?
yeah, I mean, as much as you can. And unfortunately, now that film is so global, I could be in LA and having replicate a costume or create a costume that lives in a castle in, Northern Europe somewhere. I'll never have the chance to go and actually see that sort of environment real time.
Hmm.
So, it's something that I can look up at online in books. I think a lot of references these days are more right here,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is
which
that
is,
kind of is that disappointing a little bit? Because it would be kind of cool to like go take a trip to Spain, for instance, and
oh,
just
yeah,
travel around and be like jotting notes and taking pictures
yeah.
and stuff.
I mean, that happens for the lucky designers in, multi-million dollar feature films.
What would you say is a critical lesson you've learned in your craft that has contributed significantly to your success?
Probably the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's a collaboration.
Mm,
Costume designing, production designing, sound, anything that we're doing in a film, whatever media it is in film, it's a collaboration. There's no standalone department. And I think the biggest successes really show that, whether they're contemporary or period or fantasy. Really, when something is really successful in the world, it's because I believe that the production really worked together as a team. And you cannot work in a vortex. You have to be collaborating with everyone around you because we're all painting this picture
hmm.
really at the end of the day for the director or for the studio or the network, whatever, genre you're working in. And I think that's something that I learned not right away, but soon thereafter. And sometimes you don't always agree, and sometimes you really need to speak up if you really feel passionately about a reason that you've created something a certain way, whether it's practical for movement or whether it's a visual thing, or whether it's a storytelling point. Um, and sometimes you will be heard, and sometimes your notes will be taken and actuated, and sometimes they won't. I don't know, maybe just in my experience over the years, I'm hearing things a little differently or understanding them better so that they're making more sense to me. Or I sometimes I'm being told things and I'm like, I never saw it that way before. And that makes total sense. Finding
Those
new ways to do things, and it's not always going to be my way, and that's not a bad thing.
those are great points, and that's so funny that you mentioned that it's taking you a little bit to understand the group element of it because I went to film school. I don't know if you knew
Yes,
that.
I do.
Um,
I did. Yes.
yeah, but I actually watched a video maybe 2 weeks ago, and then something that I didn't learn in film school, which is what you just mentioned, was um, this is a group project. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's kind of a cool concept. Like, I never thought of making a film as being a group project. And it's also funny because my first day of film school, people, they asked them, like, asked the group, like, who wants to be a director? And
Yeah.
everyone raised their hand. And I think that kind of tells you kind of where people like even mine was like I was like I'm ready to run the show, but it's not about that because you have all
Yeah.
these people who are specialized like you. I
Mhm.
would not even know where to begin with costume design, and that's why we have people like you to come in to show your expertise and be a part of the group.
Exactly. And the best conversations go exactly like that. If someone comes to me and says, production designer, producer, director, and says, I don't 100% understand what you do or
Right.
how you do that, but here's what I really hope for at the end of the day. So, it's those great moments where I am given the room to create something for you, even though you don't understand how I get from A to B.
That's
Yeah.
probably like a majority of the job is being trusted to do your job and not be micromanaged and be able to just run with your idea and make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you approach collaborations with directors and or showrunners who have a strong creative vision that might be different than yours, or maybe you've dealt with an actor that has a different creative vision for their own characters and their costumes? Like, how do you navigate that?
Once I've been hired and on the show, we've already determined that we're on the same page. So it will be smaller or maybe large, but it will be things that come up as we go along in production. And usually I have, something illustrated. So that kind of mitigates any problem that I really like, that may be a giant misunderstanding. And sometimes those happen, but you need to have a plan B. Like I can never go to someone and say, here's my fabulous illustration of this idea that I have for this based on our conversation. What do you think? I usually have, okay, so you're not going to love that color red. Actually, you want it to be purple. So here's my swatches that I've brought of fabric that are purple, things like that. When it comes down to cast, 90% of the time when creating something on the level of a Lemony Snicket, the cast have seen the illustrations as well because I never want to. I Nobody wants that surprise. Nobody wants something that has been approved by all the powers that be that need to have a say, and sort of come down to fine-tuned illustrations from all the notes that you've gotten, and then present it to an actor and say, "This this is what you're wearing." I mean, usually they'll be a part of that process. And if someone really, really doesn't like something, or they put it on and you can see the change in their face is not going the way you want it to when they're moving around in it in the fitting room, then you have to have a conversation with the actor. I mean, the worst thing is to put an actor in front of camera not feeling comfortable or not feeling like the character. That's not going to serve anyone.
You mentioned that everyone's already seen the art, they've already approved everything, everyone's happy. Is there ever a case where you come in and you have to almost compete with another designer that comes in also, and like they're like, okay, we've got two designers that we kind of want to work with, but we're not completely 100% like sold on a design. Like you guys kind of like present your ideas, we'll choose whoever we want to hire. Is that ever a case that happens, or?
Always the case. So, like anyone else, it's like an actor auditioning. I'll get approached about a project, then I will do a presentation or a deck for the project, and I'll put together my ideas. Hopefully, I can glean some information from somebody close to the project, so I have an idea, some inside information on what
Mm,
they're hoping for, any references of other films or I don't know, anything in life. It's usually a few days that I need to come back with a visual presentation and a spiel of, why my take on your project, basically. And then a lot of it is personality, like you and I can talk openly. Hopefully that's you get that connection with the producers and directors who will be on your Zoom interview, which is 90% of the time how it's done nowadays.
mm.
And then after that, it's you just wait.
Yeah. Has there ever been a project that you thought you were going to get, or that you really wanted to get and you just didn't quite like?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. There's always things don't always go your way, and that's something that I have learned over the years. It's hard to not take rejection in film uh, personally because it is an art form, and so that makes it personal. So there's that aspect of it. But I may not be the first pick. Therefore, my chances of getting something maybe it's just an introduction and maybe it's just a way to get my foot in the door to speak to people that I haven't spoken to before. So everything is a stepping stone. Everything is building relationships, relationship building, and some of it's based on um, your career and what you've done thus far, and some of it is, possibility of what you can do in the future.
I think that's a good nugget. Not to take things personally, and that any opportunity could always lead to something else.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
think, yeah, and I think that's something that like, now that I do more photography than video production, I still do quite a bit of both, kind of intertwined. But I've learned that if something's not right at the time, like you never know what will come around. There's been times when like over a course of a year where I thought I had a job before
Yeah.
and I wouldn't hear from them for a year. And that whole year I was still thinking that maybe they didn't like me, or they didn't think I was a good photographer, or we didn't vibe. But that was just sometimes just things don't solidify until
Yeah.
later on. And
Yeah.
you just never know what, like you said, like the intertwine, like the underbelly of the project. You just never know
Yeah.
the inner workings of like what's happening. Like they might have a budgetary thing, or
Yeah.
something doesn't go and they
Yeah.
just need to wait. You just never know. And
You don't know. And
yeah.
the normal for the industry is not doesn't exist anymore. The industry is in such a state of flux from the top on down that, the way that you got your job before or worked with people before is not the same anymore. And um, the industry is very volatile at the moment. It's a hard place to be right now. I mean, if you think about it, over the last 20 years, we went from network TV and feature films primarily, and then indies, to network streaming, which sort of has encompassed all of those genres and made it kind of a great place to work as far as I'm concerned from what I do, because there's, like we were talking earlier, if you're doing a limited series, you might have 6 or 8 episodes, so 6 or 8 hours to tell the story, where in a feature film you got an hour and a half. Also, lessons in keeping up with the industry is another big part of my job, really. It's, staying current.
I was going to ask you, like, how are AI tools, like, are they helping your career? Do you feel like they're advancing anything, or do you feel like it's more threatening to the art of costume design?
Yeah, AI is still so new, and there's still so much controversy around it. I don't think it's found its place in my department just yet in a harmonious way. A lot of us are still very afraid of it. Um, I'm afraid of it for illustrators. Uh, because networks, studios are businesses, and so money is business. And if you can create it through AI, for instance, my illustrations, if that can be done through AI, which a lot of them somewhat are these days, or even partway, why are we going to hire a person who costs this much? It's always been a hard world creating art within a business model, basically, which is what film is.
Hmm.
Because, artists are soulful, feeling, easily have their feelings hurt types of people. And we're, constantly putting things out that need to be creative, but also need to meet a financial need and need to
Yeah.
meet,
And
a
business is cold and rigid.
business.
It's like the
Yeah.
opposite of what an
Yeah.
artist is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So historically, that's always existed. So that's always been, a battle, like a personal battle, an inner battle, I guess. With this change, how can we live harmoniously together, and how can AI and I, um, create things without the exclusion of key people?
I think that's the tricky thing, especially with your line of work, is with AI. It's like you have to present value from the illustrator that you're not getting with AI.
Yeah.
And that's such a tricky balance. Because, I write kids' books. A lot of people ask me, why don't you just have AI create your art?
Hmm.
There's value in being able to tell the illustrator, oh, can you draw his face with this expression, or can you change this, and have it micro changes
Yeah.
to meet the story.
100%.
Where, like with your career with costume designers, it's almost so robotic with how the micro changes can happen using AI. It really does threaten that
It does.
illustrator's job.
It does. And the value of an illustrator to a costume designer, I mean, it can't say enough. As a costume designer, everybody always says this, but it is so true. I'm only as good as the team I have working with me. And everybody's opinion, anything that anyone has to offer isn't maybe always something that's going to be implemented but it's all valid and it's all valuable. I need this person to put it on paper to represent my idea to sell to production that this is what we want to make and this is why. And it's a real give and take, the sort of back and forth between an illustrator and a costume designer. I mean, they're usually the first person that hears my thoughts,
Right.
sees my references. And again, that's another relationship that's super important, because if they know me and understand me and my style and where I can bend and where I can't, it streamlines our work and we get like a really amazing product at the end. And the illustrator can actually do it in real time for me. We get to create together. We're creating together, and it's inspirational and aspirational. And I get all jazzed up about it, and we can just turn it around and create in the moment. And illustrators are such a big part of a costume designer's output.
Do you have to kind of like invest in paying an illustrator to pitch
Yeah.
your projects? That's kind of how it works.
Oh, yes. And yes. So that's like you're out of pocket for that. And, there's a plus where for the illustrator, where, if I do get the job, if I get the show, and they do love the illustrations, then 9 times out of 10, they'll get that job as well. So we will both have a job in a
Hmm.
sense. So it's a win-win for both of us. It's a win-win also because I get to create the show with this person, and that's that's the best part. That's the best part because we've been in it from the beginning and we got the show and we're going to be creating this and this is exciting. Like it's just exciting from the get-go. And usually everyone else is starting after that. So it's kind of a little leg up. I really love it. It's like it's a little creative bubble at the beginning with just the two of you or however many illustrators you have working.
So when you pay an illustrator, do you own the rights to the art?
I do if I employ them and I pay them for my own gain, yes. But once it gets to production level, then we have to either tweak it or then they're under contract.
Ever a deal with the studio where like, hey, I'd like to keep the art or use it how I want?
I haven't done that. And that's this is a place where there is some disparity in marketing, not tools, but marketing pieces. So, if you do something and they create a doll with your costume that becomes, that's all owned by the studio. So, sadly, costume designers who create these costumes 9 times out of 10 don't get any kickback for
Hmm.
those designs. They belong to it's all marketing, it's all aftermarket sales, etc. So that is something that's never really been, I don't know. There's been no sort of solution around that because of course, you get known for the costume that you've designed. It goes on a doll, it goes on, figures, it goes into coloring books, it goes wherever it goes in the world. Um, it gets a little lost on the designer because it goes beyond the designer. It's not like Disneyland where these are all Disney characters and it's all synonymous with Disney. If it's something else, if some other project, not on that same level, it'd be nice to be acknowledged at that level and actually be a part of the creation of whatever is being built for a doll. I'm just going to say a doll because for costumes, that's where probably the most through line.
That's the one thing that I always found interesting, like Star Wars.
Mhm,
George Lucas was so smart with the toy deal that he made, but
mhm.
you really don't see that too often anymore. I mean, I think they saw that as like, oh, George Lucas kind of knew how to
Yeah,
game this system where he makes all this money on toys.
yeah.
Kind of in the same situation with costume design, like you create, let's say, like the Last of Us action figure, and they're wearing exactly what you've drawn up and illustrated and designed.
Mhm.
It's you've got a piece of that. That's part of what you've
Yeah.
created, and it's a little unfair that you're not getting residuals on something like that.
Right, right. And also, I guess another sort of movement that is ongoing and prominent now is just even giving costume designers credit. So if there is an article on The Last of Us and they talk about, it's GQ, and this actually happened to me, but graciously, they did mention me pretty much in every article that GQ did on The Last of Us season one, where they will talk about the menswear of it all and the blah 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 of it all and the putting and where you can get the jacket and they will help you as a consumer to sort of build this costume or have access to this costume, which is great. But they don't in print a lot of the times they misstep, I'm gonna say, in not giving the designer credit or just, whether they say designed by X or just involving your name in the article just to give you the designer credit. An ongoing struggle, but it's also something that, we all look out for each other. I had a message from a designer 2 weeks ago who said on something that was put up regarding award season, and they said, "Isn't this from your season? Isn't that your design?" And
Oh,
so that happens. That happens all the time. And I think it's just uh, um, reporters, I guess, or the people who are creating content to put online, go for the most popular image that's been floating around out there in the world and just put it up, not realizing that that's actually someone else's work.
yeah, that's a
Not the,
great That's a great point. I mean,
Yeah,
between season one and season two, I mean, they are like, hey, it's the same actor.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
before we end this, I want to talk a little bit about The Last of Us.
Mhm.
Um, what was the process of bringing that to life and getting on a show like that that's um, such a big game? It's so iconic. And then I'm sure there was so much pressure on getting that right. What was the process like for that?
Yes. So again, a producer I know and brought me on to meet Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann and other producers. And the producer that I know had mentioned that it's going to be bigger than Lemony Snicket as far as production, just production goes. And I was like, how is that possible? And to say that I learned a lot on The Last of Us would be an understatement. Just technically working with visual effects, with special effects makeup. Oh my God, what a dream! Working with Barry Gower and his people, amazing. The aspect of whenever you're bringing a book or a comic or a game to life is really, there's a lot of pressure there from what already exists in the world and the fans that exist in the world. And as everybody knows, the gamers are like super serious about their characters, what they look like, how they're portrayed. Like a game to live action is tricky at best. But I think what The Last of Us had going for it at its core was that it was written like a script. The Last of Us has really fleshed out characters. There's backstory to them. They're characters like in a movie. So I think that's why it's been so successful. It already had that element in place. So translating those 3D characters to real live action, and then being able to sort of even flesh out their storylines even more broad, because now we are dealing with, you know, live people, was a gift for the gamers. And there's always going to be people who don't agree, but that happens in any genre with the way, an iconic character is brought to life, as it were. The nerve-wracking part, as always, even with Lemony Snicket or Babysitter's Club or, bringing something off the page, beloved characters, and bringing them to life. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure from within production to begin with, and from the creatives and the showrunner, and then there's the fans.
You mentioned a lot of the special effects in the
Mhm.
show. Did you have to design your costumes around the special effects?
No, the vice versa. A lot of season one was practical.
Hmm.
So, and that was from Craig. He really wanted to see the realism of it, the realism of a clicker.
I think that came through. I mean, the clickers are absolutely terrifying in the
Really?
show. They're so
Yeah.
scary. And I think they're so close to what the game is. I mean, I love the game. And so playing the game and watching the show, it's almost like a very seamless transition to both medias. Like you can see the game in the show.
Yeah, that's great because to this day, I still wonder if I got it right.
Have you never played the game or
I didn't play the game. Certainly, when I went up to interview for the show, I tried it, and a similar thing with Halo when I did the prequel Cadet Academy, Halo Forward Until Dawn. I hadn't played it, and I actually on that went out with to an interview with some gamers and tried to play it. And I'm hopeless at that hand-eye coordination thing. And I got stuck in the corner every time. And the same thing happened with The Last of Us. But I watched as much. There's much more online you can watch of The Last of Us than there was when I did Halo. So there's so much out there in the world to see and to watch and just to watch footage of the game, which is what drew me into it. Because at first I was like, do I really want to do this? It's like a jeans and t-shirt show, basically. It's a little bit period and it goes all over the country. So there's lots to do and, wear and see. But then I watched some footage of a clicker that was searching in a contained area and got stuck in the corner because its echolocation was not working for whatever reason or blocked. And my heart just broke for this person. I mean, it was a human before it was overtaken by the cordyceps situation. And my heart just broke for it. And so I instantly had a created connection with this fictitious character. And that's when I knew I really wanted to do the show. That's what really drew me into the show.
That's actually hilarious to empathize for the clicker. Like not the people that are being bitten by these things, but like the clicker, the monster, like
Yeah, but they're not. That's the thing. And if you know the science behind it, how you become a clicker, it's not, and what their mission is to spread the spores, to spread the, cordyceps mushroom like it doesn't, it exists in nature like that now. Poor nature at that point. Like I don't know, it's a hard one, right? It's like who's the victim and how are they being victimized for what end? There is an end. There is a point. But if you look at an ant that has been, taken over by a cordyceps mushroom, because this exists in nature right now, and it inhabits the body and it goes through their exoskeleton, and all that ant wants to do is to find a host plant to attach itself to so the spore can grow. That's what clickers are doing. I don't know. I don't know.
that's such a funny perspective, but I love it. I never have thought about it like that. My whole thing is obviously I play the game, so I'm like just hiding from it. So I don't even think
Yeah.
about them being a human that's
No.
being, drawn to water essentially.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You, as a player of the game, are playing the game and you have a purpose within your play. As a creator of, taking it from the game to live action, I need to know why. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of this clicker and why does it go from being an infected person to a clicker to a bloater, for instance? Like what's the process and
Mm.
what's the thought? Is there a thought or it's just sense? It's just nature. It's just nature doing what nature does. And so I don't know, maybe I should play the game then, and then my mind will be changed.
Yeah, you need to have the perspective of the humans, I think,
That's
in this
right.
case. But
I mean, it's awful. Yes, being bitten, it's like a vampire. It's like being bitten, and you also know if you're bitten, you're doomed.
well, and I think that's the idea of any kind of zombie films. It's like
Yes. Yeah.
eh, they're all walking at a slow pace, not in this show, but
Yeah.
it's trying to figure out how to sort of coexist almost with these zombies. Like, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
basically up against the wall. I was wondering between shows, obviously your whole career is almost freelance, right? It's like you're going from job to job. Is there anything that you do in between that time, or do you just prepare yourself for the next job, or do you work somewhere to is financially is are you worried about not getting the next job, or what does that
Always.
look like? Yeah.
But I mean, at the beginning of my career, I was going to be really smart. And there was a designer in Vancouver that had this system where she worked with the ballet and she did film. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And I learned very, very quickly that timing is everything. If you get on a series, especially back in the day when they were like 22 episodes, that's almost your whole year. That's 6 months at least out of your year. and you're exhausted. And 9 times out of 10, you just get a small break, being a month or two, where you roll into the next season if you stay with the production. So there's not a lot of time off. Um, I think we touched on this before. When a production is going, it's 24/7, whether you're at work on the weekend or not. Hopefully, you're not, but it's always with you. You're always creating in your mind. So, family and friends kind of sadly take at least a side seat, if not a back seat. And I don't know if that will ever change really. So when you do have downtime, for me now, I take it. So I finished my last project in August, and it's now September. And probably previously in my career, like 10 years ago, even, I would be panicking about what my next show is. But as my career has progressed, generally I know what my next project is. So I think that is something that you build on your repertoire as you grow in the industry and you gain these relationships. You know what your options are going to be probably before you're finished your last job, which is really amazing. The industry's in a state of change at the moment, so I think a lot of us are finding that that actually is changing. It's just, you know, the industry's in a bit of trouble, to put it mildly. So, knowing what your next job is not for a lot of us exactly the way it used to be. Like we don't always know.
Devastating living in Los Angeles. I mean, you're kind of
Yeah.
outside that circle, but you come back quite often. But it's
Oh,
it's noticeable here, so it's
yeah.
the sad thing. I mean, I'm here for the film industry, but it's a little bleak right now.
It's bleak and it's been that way. I mean, as a global industry, it's bleak. And after COVID and after the strikes, it's just, and everybody knew it was going to be difficult coming back, or what was it going to look like when it comes back? And I think all of those questions still exist. I don't think we're that much further ahead than we were when we first got back
Mhm.
after the strikes. So, yeah, it's hard.
What advice would you give someone who wants to enter the world of costume design and film industry right after that bleak message we just? So let's go to maybe a positive message. We'll see. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard time to give good advice on entering the industry at this point in time. And all I can say is that for my department, for costume design, there will always be a need unless we're completely overtaken by AI. And I don't even know how that would happen or when that would happen, but there's always going to be a need and there's different levels within the industry. So, there's everything that we see that we aspire to that has all the money in the world, which are, the A-list feature films. Um, so there's that, but then there is I mean, I think what has saved a lot of us is the streaming net or the streaming networks, because it took from what I used to do in network TV and gave it a new platform, which really upped the game, I would say. And so now we're seeing, you know, bigger quality, no commercials, and sort of mini movies in an hour instead of seeing, a half hour or an hour of what looks like television. So, not to diss television, there's a place for that. But there's so many sort of genres within the industry. There's also, music videos and indie films, which is how I started, and are still vital and important, and always usually have a really great message or are beautiful to watch. Um, Commercials. I mean, there's lots to aspire to within the industry as far as costume design goes. So I would just say, go to school if you can, start sort of talking to people like myself. There's mentorship programs out there, which I'm a part of. I have my mentees, so I'm all booked up. But these kind of things exist within North America, both in the U.S. and Canada and abroad. You can also PA within costume departments, which is a great way just to get your foot in the door and sort of, you know, take in everything that's going around you and learn, suck up all everything that you can that you're seeing, and make connections. Making connections is it's still an industry where that is vital and so important, and maybe even more so now than ever. Be willing to do just about anything. I mean, listen, when I started out, I said yes to everything, whether I knew what it was about, whether I wanted to have the space and time to myself at that moment or not. I just took every opportunity that I could, as safely as I could without wrecking myself or putting myself in precarious situations. So, you need to be smart, but just be willing to go and just say yes. Just take the leap and say yes. And not everything is going to work out, but that's life in general. And it's a good way to find out whether you really want to do this or not.
You're about to get about 100 emails from potential mentees. Hey, you might get one from me. We'll see. Um, what? Thank you for that answer. I think that's saying yes to projects and things that you're scared of starting. I think that's so important, especially when you're starting out. And um, when I started, I did a free internship for a couple months, and I think that's how I got my foot into the door with a lot of these things that I just never thought was possible. And
Right, right. And you don't know until you get there.
okay,
So you don't know what it takes to make all of this up and until you get yourself into it. I mean, even with film school, even with, I mean, indie films are like a great place to cut your teeth because you see a lot of times you might be doing more than just costumes. Like you may be helping out with something else that's maybe close to what you're doing, but still that doesn't happen once you get into the unionized world. There's definitely parameters and you work within them.
what do you wish someone would have told you at the beginning of your career that you might have learned the hard way, or
Well, maybe one thing that someone said recently, I guess I've had a learning curve in the last 10 years, but someone said recently, and it was just a podcast that I was listening to, another costume designer, and they said, I had to learn to get out of my own way when so sometimes you get stuck in your head, you get an idea, you think it's great, you know it's going to work better than what someone else was asking for, who has the ultimate say at the end of the day. But sometimes, regardless of whether it's going to work out better, because the genre you're working in, from your department's perspective and for all the reasons how it's going to move, how it's going to look, it would work better. It doesn't matter because it is a collaboration, a huge collaboration. And as long as someone has heard your point of view, and if they've heard it more than once, twice, three times, been listening to you pitch this for 2 weeks, if the answer is still no, I want it this way, then sometimes you just have to move and get out of your own way and create what someone is asking you to do and make it work.
uh,
Shorter answer.
yeah, and I think that's the secret to longevity in this career or any career is the
Hmm.
people who make the decision, who's paying you.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the end of the day, it's their decision, and they might they might cave, but they are only going to cave for so long until they just
Yeah.
find someone else that will do what they want, what
Yeah.
they want you to do. So,
Yeah. And you
um,
you never want someone to feel that. You never want someone to feel like they're caving to your
yeah.
idea. You want to see a light bulb go on so that they are actually seeing it as well.
What do you want people to take away from your body of work?
Diversity in genre, I guess, mostly. And I think that's what keeps it interesting for me after all of this time and the time that I have coming in the future, I hope, fingers crossed. Is that's what keeps it fresh and interesting as an artist. The willingness to just just try new things all the time, or not all the time, but try new things and hopefully being successful in everything that I try, because uh, there's nothing worse than trying something new and totally flopping at it. But yeah.
I love that. No, and I think, I mean, that's my approach too, is just do as many things as possible. And then, if something gets boring, I just kind of shift my direction here or there. Um, but it is hard to be known for one thing if you're constantly doing new things.
Yeah.
But
That's true. That's
yeah,
true. And yes, and that is a handicap. I feel confident enough, I think, at this stage of my life that I've moved into, I've stayed true to a few genres as opposed to being all over the place. I will continue that way because hopefully, because it keeps me present and active and gets my juices flowing and gets me interested and keeps me interested in what I'm doing. And that's just so important, regardless of what you do in life. I think you need to be invigorated by what you do.
I 100% agree. And I mean, you've run the gamut from post-apocalyptic to Apollo 11 to babysitters to, I mean, it just sounds like your career has blossomed into so many different flowers. And it's it's really cool to just kind of go through your credits. 'Cause I just recently have seen all your credits, and it's very impressive. Well, Cynthia, it's been so fun doing this project with you, and it's been so fun just talking to you about these amazing projects you've worked on. I thank you so much for taking your time to chat with me. It's been a real
Sure.
pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you so much.